if you're going to draw on top of, if you're going to start to caricature this, you have to sort of understand that, you know, let me just sit there and put this little tiny nose on here. Again, it's a cartoon cat. And, and I'm going to sort of just start with that, because that's sort of my, if this was the sphere and this is the eye line that I want to sit there and structure it, this is what I'm going to start to work with, because I know that there's going to be a bunch of fur on the outside as well. So, and also, I also know that there's going to be the muzzle area is going to be kind of small here. And so these teeth may not be as sharp as this. Obviously, the jaw has a tendency, you know, is going to pivot off of this point here. So if it goes back up in there, it's going to be a bit smaller. And I'm going to sit there and sort of create this puffiness up in here like this, and sort of get up in here, because this is where the smile would be on this case here, and sort of give it a furry, sort of a cat sort of like feeling, because I got to really think of the fur here. And in this case, I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sort of have these large closed eyes. I'm going to sit here and say, okay, let's just imagine these large, big closed eyes with the big eyebrows like this. I'm going to sort of get it in here like that. Now I know all this is in here, but I also know that there's a large fur mass that comes off of the side. And a lot of this has to be from just getting a photograph and looking, but then trying to understand what's underneath it as well. So you have to really start to get it, and that's really the fun part about sort of studying animals or whatever it is you want to draw, even human beings, or sitting. Sometimes when I was started at Disney, we used to, when I was a kid back in the 1970s, we used to sit outside of the animation building and actually just watch people walk by, because we'd see all shapes and sizes and different types of people with different types of walks and different types of physical attributes and interesting ideas that we would get, and we would little caricature those things and have fun, and maybe sometimes we'd put them in the movies, sometimes we wouldn't. Well, with animals, you're going to do the same thing, and the same thing with cats. So the part of that's kind of fun besides just the drawing part is actually the research, actually getting in there and saying like, hey, maybe I'm going to look and see at all kinds of different cats. I'm going to see how that works, and maybe go and look at the anatomical type of bodies they are, and what's actually happening underneath it. There's a sort of a fascinating science that goes behind drawing that even makes it that much more exciting when you're actually starting to interpret it as a cartoon character. So I'm going to go and start to give this big puffy cheeks out here like this. Out here, I'm going to give a big, big, big puffy. I want to make sure that those I have the center line up here, so I'm going to have a little space here, but I'm going to create these big, big ears like this. I know that the ears are going to be coming out from the other side over here, because and again, this is sort of like a generic cat. I want to give him, though, a big, 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 big puffy neck, as if it's sort of a big furry cat, again here. And of course, cats have a tendency to have long whiskers, so I'm going to give him a bit of a, you know, long whiskers out here like this. Maybe I'd have one of the teeth hanging down here like this. It's kind of a interesting character here. And then I start to have, maybe he has got this little collar here as it starts to go off, and he's all fluffy. Again, everything I'm doing here is sort of building on a sort of an scary little interesting bone structure. But yet, I'm thinking of this, at a certain point you get to the point where you sort of already know that when you're drawing. Or at least, the worst case scenario, when you start to rough in these shapes, you're already kind of knowing what's underneath there. And I'll give you another example of that. Is that let's look at the idea of a. I'm just going to put this here for a second so you can kind of keep tabs on this stuff. It's also kind of nice to have a little bit of something that you can look at.